Hey everybody, I'm going to be going over your Tuesday assignment today in VEXcode VR. So what I'm doing is I am pulling up the Tuesday VR assignment and it is titled Basketball Drills. So you're going to need to pull up the Google Doc in one tab, and then you're also going to need to pull up the VEXcode VR in the other tab. So let's go ahead and take a look at today's lesson. First of all, I see that our playground is grid map. Okay, so just like last time, I'm going to make sure I select a playground and I'm going to choose grid map. And then I'm going to go ahead and close this. You can also choose to hide it. It's up to you. And now I'm going to go and see what we're going to be doing today. Okay, so I am going to program the robot for level 1. Oh, and let me look at my helpful hints. It says for your helpful hints, your grid squares, again, are 200 millimeters by 200 millimeters. And then if I want to make my project shorter, I can use this repeat block in the control category. Okay. So, and I will tell you a little bit more about these here in just a few minutes. We call these C blocks because it looks like the letter C. So let me come back up here. It says, program the robot to drive forward 1 grid square. Next, program the robot to drive in reverse to the beginning point. So I'm just going to focus on this part for right now. So if he needs to drive forward 1 grid square, how far forward in millimeters does he need to drive? If you said 200 millimeters, you are correct. So I'm going to program him to drive forward 1 and reverse 1. So over here in my VEXcode VR tab, I'm going to say drive forward for 200 millimeters. Now you will not find reverse over here. What you'll need to do is drag over another drive forward, and in this drop down menu I am going to click on this and I'm going to click reverse. Okay, so he's going to drive forward 1, drive reverse 1 grid square, which is 200 millimeters each. Then I'm going to program him to drive the pattern for 2 grid squares. So 2 grid squares. So if 1 is 200, then 2 grid squares would be 2 times 200, which is how many millimeters? If you said 400, you are correct. And he also needs to do that in reverse. 400. And now I need to go the 4 grid squares. Okay? So for 4 times 200 is how many? If you said 800, you are correct. So I'm going to change this to 800 millimeters. And now let's see if he does what he is supposed to do. I'm going to hit the start button and let's watch the playground. Remember, he's supposed to go forward and reverse 1, 2, and then 4. And he did it. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of my playground. And my job now, remember I've completed level 1, and perhaps I'm going to go ahead and put a comment block in here so that if I need to know, I know what's going on. I'm going to put basketball drills level 1 and then my last name. And now I'm going to take a screenshot. So I'm going to hit Control Shift Show Windows and going to capture. Okay. And now I need to do level 2. Okay. It says I'm going to program him to drive forward 1 grid square, stop, and return back 1 grid square to where he started without using the reverse block. So I'm going to change this to level 2, first of all. And I know I need him to drive forward. Then I need him to stop. I'm going to go back up to my drivetrain blocks. I'm going to have him turn and head back to from where he was coming. So that is 180 degrees. And then I'm going to have him head back to where he came from. So let's see. Let's watch what happens. And he did it. But I want to show you something. Watch. Watch the robot. Did you see a pause at all? It does tell us to have him stop, but did you see the pause? So let me take this block out and see what happens. Let me take the stop driving block out. See if it changes anything about our code. It did not change anything about our code, okay? So for simplicity, boys and girls, I would like for you to not bother with using the stop driving block on this lesson, okay? There are times when this will come in handy later if you guys are in robotics and we're using actual robots, but for the VR robot, it will not make a difference, so we will not be using that. All right, so we had him drive forward, stop, and return back one grid square without using reverse. So in order to not reverse, we had to actually physically turn around, okay? And then we're going to have him do the same thing for 2 grid squares and then 4 grid squares, okay? So he has, in this one, driven forward, he's turned around, and he's driven back forward to the end. But take a look at something here. He is facing the wrong direction. So we need to make sure that we turn him around again here at the end. Otherwise, he's just going to be driving into the wall. You can't really tell it, but if you click on this other point of view, or even the first person point of view, he's looking at a wall, okay? And then you can change those perspectives right here. So I'm going to go back to overhead. So we're going to go ahead and need to turn him around again. So I'm going to turn right for 180 degrees. Okay, and then we need to copy this pattern for 2 grid squares and for 4 grid squares. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use 2 fingers on the touchpad. With 2 fingers, I will click and I'm going to hit duplicate. Okay, and I'm gonna stack these right here, right now. I'm going to duplicate it again. Okay, 1 grid square. This needs to be 2 grid squares, which is 400 millimeters. And this needs to be 4 grid squares, which is 800 millimeters. I think I said meters a moment ago, but I meant millimeters. Okay, 1 grid square, 2 grid squares, 4 grid squares. Okay, now I just need to stack them up. Okay, and I am done with this lesson. You're going to notice I can't see all of the code well. So I'm going to pinch out to zoom out. You can also hit Control plus or Control minus to zoom in and out. Okay, I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to hit Control Shift Show Windows and I'm going to stretch. I'm going to stretch this box so that I can get all of my code in for basketball drills level 2, and I have my name there. I'm going to hit capture. All right. Now for level 3, I don't want to do level 3 for you, but I do want to show you a couple of things. Okay. First, I'm going to change this to level 3. All right. Level 3, I would like for you to do on your own. It says you're going to build an algorithm, which is a process or a set of rules to move through all 1 to 8 grid squares in sequential order. So this word right here, this sequential, that means in number order. So I'm going to go 1 grid square, 2 grid squares, 3 grid squares, 4 grid squares, 5 grid squares, and so on until I get to 8 grid squares. Okay, the robot should move to 1, go back to the start, move to 2, go back to the start, and continue for 8 grid squares. You can use reverse, or you can turn around. I'm going to tell you that using reverse will get you there faster. Using the repeat block, it may not be the easiest to see how that can be useful on this particular assignment. You can create a variable and use it that way, but if you have never coded, I do not expect you to be creating your own variables. We will get more in depth in this coding stuff later on, okay? All I want you to do is find any way to move him 1 grid square, 2 grid squares, 3 grid squares, and so on until you get to all 8 grid squares. So the maximum distance that you'll need to travel from the start point is 8 grid squares. So 8 times 200 millimeters is how much? 1,600 millimeters or 1,600 millimeters, okay? So you'll go from 2 to 1,600 millimeters and everything in between, okay? And then you're going to need to screenshot that and turn in all 3 screenshots to Google Classroom for grading. I will be grading all of these, and please remember that we will not be taking zeros on any assignments. Even if you just get the first 2 levels done, get those turned in, okay? So I hope you guys have fun with this, and if you need anything, let me know, and have a great week. Bye.